All right, Jesse, thanks for sending in your video. Looking forward to taking a look at the swing and giving you some recommendations. I already watched the swing a few times before we got started here, and I went ahead and kind of hit some key areas in the golf swing and went ahead and ranked you on each of these areas. And first things first, I'm pretty impressed with a lot of things, especially at impact. That's probably my favorite part of your swing. Really good timing and rotation through the golf ball. Looks like you actually have a decent transition as well from the right side to your left. And that's a really great quality to have in a golf swing. I'm not sure if you've played any other sports before, but maybe baseball or hockey or something. But obviously, that is definitely some natural talent there that we can use. So I do have some recommendations, and we're going to just jump right into it. First things first is we're going to take a look at your setup position, and really three key areas to look at, and that's going to be your grip, your alignment, where you're aiming, and essentially just your overall setup of the golf ball, especially your posture. So we'll hit those three areas. Next, we're going to take a look at your backswing, and I've got a couple areas that could use some improvement there, but overall, really good score. First thing we'll take a look at is probably your arc width, and that is going to be essentially the distance between the club head and your swing center. And your swing center is going to be somewhere around your neck, kind of the connection between your shoulders and your head, your neck area, and the club head. So just a little concern with that at the top of the swing. Next is going to be what I call the lever system, and that is really essentially just your left arm and your wrist, kind of the levers of the swing that we create. Next would be your connection, and that connection is actually going to be really just your elbows and your torso. Simply enough, it's the connection between your arms and your body. After the backswing, we'll move into the forward swing, and that's going to be pretty much all the movements from the top of the swing down through impact, and just a little look at everything kind of after impact. First thing to look at is going to be your swing center, and that's once again your neck region. Really good position through the backswing, but it looks like it kind of moves on us a little bit towards the target during the forward swing, so I'd love to take a look at that as well. Once again, I just want to comment how well you do with your timing and actually the use of your lever system through your forward swing. So I'll just want to congratulate you on getting into those really good positions. The next thing we'll take a look at is, once again, your connection on the forward swing, and once again, that's your elbow and kind of chest relationship, as well as where you're releasing the club head. Where you're kind of releasing just the entire club itself. A little concerned, it looks like it releases a little bit early in the swing. If we can get that to release a little bit later in the swing, I think that's going to help us with some distance issues as well as some directional issues as well. And just overall, Jesse, really good impact position. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to pause the video here, and we're going to take a look at just pretty much your overall setup. And this is really going to be everything before you get the swing started, and kind of how you address the golf ball. And we'll obviously specifically, we'll just kind of talk about the driver. Before I jump into actually anything with the setup, I just want to remind you that the driver is really the only club in the bag that we're going to be we make impact after we bottom out, after we've reached the bottom of our apex in our swing. We bottom out, and it's really optimal to make impact right after that moment. So we'll bottom out, and then bam, we'll make impact on the upswing, as we like to call it. So that's just one key difference between the driver and really any other club in your bag. That is probably the one club, actually it is the only club in your bag where you're going to be hitting on the up. Our irons, our wedges, even our putter is something that we want to make sure that we are hitting down on the golf ball. So that being said, let's take a look at the first evaluation, and that's going to be your grip. So we call this, standard term is a strong grip. I like to refer to it as a closed grip, and I like to use the term closed because when we have this position with our left arm, and that's going to be, this left arm right here, and the grip, the wrist, and the cupping of that wrist, that puts your left thumb on the right side of the club. So that's what we call a strong grip there. And the reason why I call it closed is because it's going to make sure the relationship between your left arm and the club face is so strong that it is going to force that club face to be closed for pretty much the majority of your swing. Definitely at the top, and we're definitely an athlete here, and we're able to rotate that face and get that into a position where we're kind of almost squared up. But definitely a closed grip there. I was not able to take a look at your alignment from this angle, so I didn't really score you on that. But it looks, from this view, it looks like everything's pretty squared up or pretty neutral. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of skip that. Last thing with the setup is just your posture and kind of just our stance and how we kind of address our body, address the club, address the golf ball. First thing that I notice is, usually with the driver, we have a little bit more of a wider stance. Really big fan of the ball position. Definitely forward in your stance. Typically, though, when I see players with stronger grips, it benefits them to actually kind of put the ball position a little bit more forward in their stance, something maybe off the left toe or your left heel. Next thing is the width of your stance. There's not much. It's a very narrow stance, and by narrow, we're looking at kind of this angle here, the position of our feet and how much space there really is in between them. I'm a big fan of how your left side looks. Really, everything on this side looks really good. This side here, this left side. What I'm concerned about is the right side. Get rid of those lines. The right side. So if we can actually take a little bit of a bigger step back with our right foot, I'd probably just stay an entire step back and get a position more here. That's going to create a wider stance, and I'll tell you why that's going to benefit you with the driver. We want to come in at a more of a shallow attack, a shallow angle of approach is what we call it. So, the opposite of a shallow would be steep, and when we have a narrow stance, we create a steep angle of attack. And great stance to have for an iron shot where we want to be a little bit steeper, or a wedge shot where we want to be a little bit steeper when we make impact. Not ideal for a longer club, specifically the driver. So I would definitely recommend building a little bit more of a wider setup when you address the golf ball. One of the best drills that I do, and I do this for every shot when I'm actually on the golf course, is I'll put both feet together at address, take one small step with my left foot towards the target, and then I'll take one giant step with my right foot, depending on what club I'm using. Obviously the driver would be my widest step, and then maybe my 7-iron would be somewhere in the middle, and then my sand wedge being the shortest step possible. So longest step with the driver, shortest step with a wedge, and then some sort of a middle step with those mid irons, and you can kind of find some comfort zone when applying that drill to your setup. So other than that, like I said, I wasn't able to take a look at your aim, but I went ahead and gave you a grade of 53% on your setup. So definitely a lot of room for improvement. I think one thing, if we are able to incorporate that wider step, and maybe, I'm not trying to do a total transformation with your grip there, but it is fairly strong. If we kind of just loosen that a little bit, really easy, just get that left thumb a little bit more on top of the club. Not totally on top of the club, but not so far on the right side of the club shaft, on that club grip. So let's go ahead and jump into the back swing. And this is going to be pretty much from when we start all the way to the top, right? So we start the club and then we get set at the top just before we begin our forward swing. So first thing I looked at was your, what I call balance, your dynamic balance. And that's really just a big word for transition. And we're transitioning over to the right side, right? We're not transitioning towards the target. We need to load up. And you do a really good job of getting that weight over to the right side. Another thing that I look at is what I call your swing center. We already introduced that earlier in the lesson. I just want to reiterate, you've got a really good swing center at your backswing. I actually ranked you a 9 out of 10 because you're able to keep that so still, so quiet. However, we will take a look at your swing center during the forward swing. Definitely a little concerned about that. So really good job there. So your next principle would be the width, your arc width. And your arc width, I think I said this earlier, is going to be your relationship between the club head and that swing center. So if I was to draw a circle, if this line was going to follow your club head, it really should maintain that radius. Our swing is really a circle, and if you want to think about your width of your arc as your radius, it's a really simple way to think about it. It just breaks down a little bit here at the top. See how that club head just gets a little closer to our body as we get longer in the swing. I can see that your left arm is breaking down a little bit there, and that is a good tell that you are losing some width. So if we're able to actually, keep that club head nice and low at the takeaway, what you do there, and continue to keep that club head nice and low, and that feeling of more around, and whatever feeling you can kind of create, that kind of creates separation between our chest and that club head. I think that's going to help fix this breakage that we see at the top. And in fact, I think it's going to really encourage a little bit more of a little bit of a steeper rotation with our shoulder line. So while we're at it, I'll go ahead and talk about that shoulder line. I'm a big believer in where our shoulders are during the swing. I'll tell you what, Jesse, I'm really in favor of all these motions here. You're using those big muscles to get that swing started. You're using your shoulders to kind of rock those arms as hands. So I wouldn't change a dang thing right here. I'm a big fan of that. However, I start to see some issues pretty much at this point. I call this parallel, where that shaft is parallel with the ground. Once we've gotten past this point, I see that, it's hard to see from this angle, but the club is looking like it's coming a little inside. A little bit of rollage with the wrist, and that club is getting lost behind you. All right, so one thing that I would recommend to fix this is once we get to this point, really right here, once you start thinking about getting your shoulders more engaged, and I want you to really turn on a radial type of fashion, and that's real simple thought is, let's get this left shoulder low, right? Low, down, and around is a really good feeling. And then your right shoulder, this is big, right shoulder is going up and around. So, if you're in your living room right now, or, anywhere where, nobody's gonna look at you weird, go ahead and get that feeling of, maybe if you have a club, great, go ahead and put a club across your shoulders and just feel this rotation of, getting the club head, the butt end of the club, or maybe the club head down to the ground. One end of the club is pointing down, the other point of the club is pointing up. And that should really encourage a lot of shoulder rotation. So if we're got a club across our chest, I'm going to point one end down and the other one up. You'll know you're doing this wrong if you're rotating and one end of the club is pointing at the wall or not pointing at the ground at all. That would be very flat rotation. We want to kind of steepen that a little bit. I'm a big fan of that, and I'll tell you why. We lose a little connection at the top. I've already talked about the lever system here for you, and there's a little breakage in that left arm, so we need to address that. But we also lose connection with our right arm. It's hard to see from this angle, but you're in a really good position. Go ahead and take a look at your elbow, your right elbow, and see how well connected it is with your chest. And we begin to see just a little bit of separation back here. It's really behind you. Now imagine if we're getting our right shoulder nice and up and around, how easier it is to stay connected with that right elbow. So at the top, we can see that both of our elbows are fairly bent. The left one definitely should not be, the right one definitely should be. However, I would like to see that position a little bit more down towards the ground, not pointing at that gentleman behind you. If we can feel like that right shoulder is going up, it should feel a lot easier for that right elbow to stay down. If our right shoulder is going flat and just straight back, maybe even if our right shoulder is going down, our right elbow is more likely to kind of flare and point, or disconnect, more importantly. So other than that, just one other thing to look at, and we call this position, and it's just a position of your left arm. Actually not bad at all. I'm looking at your wrist, the cocked wrist, and the relationship between your forearm and the back of your left wrist. So that's your forearm there, and then just the relationship between the back of your left wrist and your forearm, and it's fairly flat, which is a good position to be in. Most players that I see with stronger grips, they're cocked here at setup, and they continue to stay cocked all the way through the back of the swing. So I don't have the best angle from this viewpoint. If I was viewing you down the line, I probably have a better impression on where that's at, but from this angle, it doesn't look too bad. So overall, Jesse, I gave you a 68% on your backswing. Definitely some good things that I didn't cover, such as your swing center. Really impressed with that. Your dynamic balance, getting your weight over to your right side, and also just the position at the top. I don't think that's too much to be concerned about, but there are definitely things to improve on. So really well done. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at the forward swing, our last portion of this video. And our forward swing is really going to be everything from the top of the swing down through impact. A lot of different areas to cover, so I'll try to speak slowly and try to cover these in the best order that I can. First thing to look at is, once again, dynamic balance. We have dynamic balance in the backswing. We also have dynamic balance in the forward swing. There's actually a lot of things that we have in common with the forward in the back and the forward swing. So that's one of the first things we're going to look at, and that is just are we getting our weight from our right side over to our left? And you definitely are. You do not have an issue doing that. Definitely do not have an issue doing that. One issue that you do have, though, and really concerned about, is the swing center. So I'll go back to address and draw that circle again around our neck. And that's a small circle there, so aim small, miss small, right? Well done at keeping it there during the backswing. However, once we start that forward swing, we immediately move towards the target, and we, not too bad. Not terrible, not as bad as I thought it would be. But just want to highlight how important it is to make sure that we keep that swing center, nice, relatively quiet. I don't like seeing it moving towards the target at all. There's some players that kind of move it back, and then they find their way back into their original position during the backswing. But definitely during the forward swing, if we take a look at our spine angle, at address, very good tilt there. Love seeing that. And let's just find ourselves at impact, where are we? We're definitely ahead of it. You know, this is kind of right after impact, so we've moved off our spine. You know, we've moved off our axis. You know, our main center point. So definitely a concern. I think we can really eliminate a lot of inconsistent shots, shots that go to the right, especially by fixing that swing center. So next thing is timing, and timing is really just a sequence of events. You could say it's definitely a motion that starts from the ground and works its way up the swing. So our first is going to be the feet. Really, it's the feet. You know, are we getting engaged with the feet? And you definitely are. I'm seeing, you know, you're pressing down on that heel. That's telling me that you're applying pressure into your left side. I'm seeing that pressure kind of working its way up, right? That knee is getting nice and extended. And, you know, next is the hips. Next is the chest. You know, maybe just an early hands are getting there, you know, maybe before your shoulders are getting going. But, you know, nice release of the hips there. Nice release with the shoulders. Just very strong forearms there, and I'll actually address that. But really good timing. You know, once again, that order is feet, knees, hips, chest, or, you know, shoulders, and then arms. You know, and then the club kind of follows. But really good timing there. You know, one thing with, once again, arc width, not too great on the backswing, but really good on the forward swing. We're able to regain that width here and, you know, essentially create that distance again. So not bad. Our last couple big key areas are going to be connection, your release, and then impact. And you actually scored very well in these areas. You were able to recover what we lost in the backswing. You know, that connection, you know, remember how I told you, you know, we want to have that elbow kind of pointed down, you know, and that shoulder kind of up, that right side up, elbow down. Look at where you're at, you know, when you're developing some impact. Where's that right elbow? You know, it kind of wants to point down, right? So you're able to actually regain connection. The only connection I'm worried about is actually now in your left elbow. And, you know, I can't really tell from this angle, but we've lost connection there. And that's going to tell me that we're probably losing connection as well somewhere here a little bit earlier. And, you know, once again, connection is just going to be a relationship between our elbows and our chest. And we always want to kind of maintain some sort of connection, you know, relatively the same connection how we started the swing. So you have connection here. You know, are we staying connected through the swing? It kind of tells me there that we might have a little issue. So once again, left elbow through the forward swing. We want to kind of feel like we're exiting left is a great feeling to have. I'll bring those shoulders back in to play with the forward swing. You know, if we have a position, if we have a right shoulder that's a little bit higher and our left shoulder is a little bit lower at the top of the swing, we're going to be able to really drive down with that right shoulder, right? So we're going to really want to drive down and around with that right shoulder. That's going to be the red line. And I'll go ahead and draw a blue line for our left. You know, if that left shoulder is a little bit down, more down than what you're looking at here, you know, the best way to kind of exit and get that left elbow more connected is by going up and around. All right, so these lines are for your elbows. I'm sorry, not your elbows, but your shoulders, to help your elbows. And once again, right line, I want to see your shoulder go down and around, and I also want to see your left shoulder go up and around. It does a really good job of going up here. Is it going around? Not really. It's kind of just going straight up. So once again, exit left. The feeling of exiting left with that left arm should help fix that problem and stay a little bit more connected. And that's actually going to help you rotate and get around as well. Next is your release of the club. Really key part to the swing, especially when we're delivering the golf club to the impact position. And it's actually right there. Use a yellow line. And this is really where we're beginning to release the club. And the release begins, if you want to think about angles, our smallest angle is probably right here, right? That's going to be the relationship between the shaft and our lever, our left arm. And ideally, we would want to see this angle a little bit wider. I know, right? Hard to believe, but we want to kind of see this a little bit wider. And that's going to come from assistance from our arc width. Keeping that left arm straight, not breaking down at the top here. If we're able to actually keep that left arm in that straight position all the way through, because you definitely get back to it and you're there, we're able to kind of hold that lag a little bit longer. So we'll go to the next frame. I'm going to keep those yellow lines on there just to kind of show you the the lag that we lose by early releasing. Here's the next one. So we've got boom, starting to release the club, and it's being released. I'll tell you what, if the ball was right here, the ball was right there, man, you'd be crushing the living daylights out of it. But unfortunately it's not. It's actually located right here. And I'm just going to continue to move with your swing here, and we've kind of lost that ideal impact position. It's very in fact, it's at the opposite angle that we want it to be. Ideally we're going to be more in a position where those left big muscles, those bigger muscles have moved to the left and they've already released, and once again our hands are going to follow, and then the club head. And that's the position that we want to be in, where we're feeling that grip kind of staying low is a great feeling, where we're keeping that grip nice and low, making sure that the hands get to the impact position first, and then the club head follows. So one recommendation for you, to eliminate an early release, real simple, we're just going to want to do a delayed release. We're going to want to feel like that release is coming a little bit later in the swing, not at the top. That's where it's kind of happening right now. But if we can kind of feel like we're getting a little bit more width with our takeaway, keep that left arm nice and extended, keep that extension. We're losing that extension by flexing it. So if we're able to keep that extended, keep that width, keep that lever system, and essentially we're releasing the club somewhere right here. Once we're trying to get to parallel with the ground, this would be the ideal position to begin releasing the club, but we've already done that. So definitely something to work on there. And last thing I graded you on was our impact. I give you an 8 out of 10 on that. And, it looks like you caught the center of the face pretty good. And that's coming from good timing. That's coming from a good dynamic balance, good swing center. So well done on that. Overall, on your forward swing, I gave you a 69%, 69% for your forward swing. So really good stuff, but definitely some room for improvement. So Jesse, I hope you enjoyed this video. I look forward to seeing the next videos that you send me. If by chance, send me a couple. One, from this angle, we call this face on, but if you could send me another video down the line, I could definitely take a look at some of those plane angles, that swing plane, and some other really key important parts. And hopefully I can give you some good advice on that as well. So once again, I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to go practice as soon as you can. Get these new tips, these new recommendations involved, and hopefully start swinging that club better. Thanks, Jesse. Take care and good luck.